Hello, everyone. My name is Terry Conley, and I'm the Financial Literacy Facilitator for Financial Freedom, a Path to Debt-Free Living. In today's session, we're going to talk about the big deal about debt. We'll introduce a 5-point path and some cool tools that you can use in terms of getting out of debt. We'll wrap up with some final thoughts about the plan that you choose and some available resources that I hope you find valuable in terms of getting out of debt. So before we begin, let's just take a few minutes to think about what it would be like if you had no debt. If there was no monthly credit card bill, no vehicle payment, no student loans, no mortgage. Think about your emotional health and the stress-free living that you could enjoy. And I want you to take just a few seconds just to think about that. Just close your eyes just for a minute and think about it. Okay, so now that you have this wonderful image of peace and tranquility, maybe you can imagine yourself swimming off a beach in the Caribbean. You might want to put on a life jacket because we have to face our debt situation, and we all know that that can be pretty scary. When you imagine what your life would be like if you didn't have any debt, what was it like? Did you imagine yourself with no worries, low anxiety, reduced stress, freedom to do what you wanted to do? That's the goal for debt-free living. But to get there, you have to address the problem head on. And there is definitely an emotional aspect of carrying debt. Debt can have many impacts on a person's life. It can negatively impact your credit rating score, which could limit you from getting a credit card or a loan. It can prevent you from buying your home or even rent an apartment. Debt is also significant in its impact on a person's mental health. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Debt is a vicious cycle, and too often people are just like hamsters on a wheel. They can't get off the ride. So unfortunately, the cycle has very damaging results. And some research found that worrying about debt triggers stress, which reduces your resilience against mental health problems. Other studies show mental health problems decrease self-control, increase spending, and basically mess up a person's financial judgment. So debt can be overwhelming, and that impedes our judgment. And unfortunately, it's a difficult cycle to break. I want to tell you a little story, and I'm sharing the story because I feel like as a facilitator, you need to know that I've been in your shoes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the debt that we had as a family and how it impacted me personally. So when our children were younger, I worked part-time, and my husband actually ended up losing his job. He was laid off. So we struggled, and we were really buried in some debt. The issue that I had was that I was teaching financial literacy to some newlyweds at our church, and I felt like such a fraud. You know, I would leave those meetings, and I remember talking to my husband. I'm like, how can we tell these young couples that, to get out of debt, and we're just buried in it ourselves? So each person's debt threshold is different. So I'm not going to tell you how much it was, but I can share this with you. I felt like I was suffocating. I couldn't sleep well, and I wasn't in a good mental state. So we had to do something that was pretty drastic. We sold our house and we purchased a much more affordable home. We took a large portion of our profits from our home sale, and we paid down a significant amount of debt. So we're going to talk a little bit later on in terms of some of the steps that you might have to take and some things that you might consider to be drastic. Others, you consider them maybe not so drastic. But let me tell you this. I have been there, and I wouldn't suggest that you do anything that I haven't already done. So I do want you to keep that in mind. So yes, I have suffered from debt dread. This is the point when you don't want to look at your bills when they come in. Your bills might keep you up at night. That's all you can think about. So it inhibits your sleeping. You don't want to go to the mailbox to get your mail because of some incoming bills that might show up. Debt makes you feel hopeless. It's debilitating, and it limits you on what you want to do, and it can steal your future. So here's another quick story that I want to share. This happened to a young girl that I know. So she had just graduated from college. She went to a good school and unfortunately took out some student loans. When she graduated, she really wanted to travel and wanted to help people. So she looked into some mission programs, but couldn't make the numbers work because she had significant student loans that she had to repay. So while her college prepared her for her future, her student loans stole what she really wanted to do from her. So that's the irony of getting student loans while you're going to college. So, okay, so with that, I mean, now we've talked a little bit about the emotional and mental impact of what debt can do to you. So now let's talk about debt-free living and your path to success. So let's look at some steps to get you out of the situation that you may find yourself in right now. This is our 5-point path. And I'm going to go into detail about each of these steps in just a few minutes. But the first one is step number 1, to acknowledge the problem. Step number 2, resolve to do something about it. Step number 3, create your plan. Step number 4, execute your plan. And then step number 5 is monitor results and repeat to complete. Okay, so step number 1, acknowledging the problem. Psychology 101 right here, right? So you have to acknowledge that there is a problem in order to address it and in order to find a solution. So when you acknowledge the problem, you have to face it. And we're going to do that by listing all of your debts. That's one of the first things that you have to do. You have to come in terms with the problem. So you have to face it spot on. And I'm going to show you a slide, and you can do this. This is, basically all you want to do here is just list your debts with balances and interest rates. So in my example, I have 4 debts. I'm carrying 4 credit card debts. So I have Citi card with a balance of $1,200. The interest rate on that card is 12%. I have a minimum payment of $100 that's due for that. I have a Triangle Visa card, a balance of $593, and I have an interest rate of 8%. Bank of America credit card is $3,800 balance, 11% interest rate. And then finally, I have a PayPal credit card, and that's a $400 balance with an interest rate of 19%. And so we're going to talk about those in just a few minutes. But at this point, if you haven't ever listed your debts, I would encourage you to take a moment, even just pause this video or listen, or pause the podcast if you're listening on a podcast. Just take a few minutes and write down all of the debts that you have. You want to talk about your balances and your interest rates as well. Okay, come to terms with what you have for debt right now. All right, step number 2. So now you have the list, and you might think it might be overwhelming, but now you're ready to do something about it. So when you resolve to do something about your debt, this is an amazing step in your journey. And what does it mean to resolve to do something? So when I Googled that particular word or phrase, like resolve to do something, this is what came up: to find an answer or a solution to something, to settle or solve something, to make a definite and serious decision to do something, to make a formal decision about something. So if you replaced the word debt in all of those definitions, here's what you'd have: to find an answer or a solution to my debt, to settle or solve my debt, to make a definite and serious decision about my debt, to make a formal decision about my debt. So you have to resolve to do something about your debt. I don't want to be redundant, but it's serious, right? I mean, if you're not sleeping at night because of your debt, then you have to make a plan and you have to resolve to make that plan. All right, so here we are. Now we're already in step number 3, and this is about creating your plan. So now what you want to do, you need to start with a budget, and your budget, you should create a budget to know what your income is and what your expenses are. You want to use a zero-based budget, which means you give every dollar that's coming in that month an assignment. Basically, you're telling your money what to do for the month. And when it comes to a budgeting debt, you want to start with just the minimum payments for each debt. You want to create a budget at the beginning of the month. And don't worry if budgeting scares you and you've tried it before and it hasn't worked. It takes usually about 3 to 6 months for the budgeting process to really work for you, in all honesty. But don't worry, you will get it. And the first month when you hit your budget, you're going to be pretty excited. I know that I was, right? So if you need a budgeting tool, please reach out to me after, you listen to this workshop or online with the podcast, or if you're viewing it on our YouTube channel, you can email me and I can send you a budget spreadsheet that I have. It's through Excel, but it has all the formulas that you need and it's super easy. So don't delay in reaching out to me and asking for that if you need it. We have a new on-demand budgeting 101 workshop that you can view at your convenience. And that really just goes through the zero-based budgeting. It's very thorough. So you want to do your budget, and then you find out that you might have some extra income that you can pay toward your debt. And then hopefully that is the goal. And we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But now that you're on you have a plan, you really need to set a target date in terms of reaching your goal. So let's say that my plan is to get out of debt within 1 year. I'm going to share an example of what that will look like with you in just a few minutes. But you want to be consistent in following your budget and your debt-free plan. So let's just recap on terms of the steps in creating your plan. So step number 3, start a budget. Any extra income is going to go towards debt. So hopefully when you do your budget, you find some surplus money there, and that money would go towards your debt. You choose the debt-free plan that you like, and we're going to talk about a couple of methods in just a few minutes. Set a target date and then be consistent. All right, so here we go. So this is our budget, our budgeting sheet, and it's a zero-based budget. At the top, you can see that you have a gross monthly income. In this particular example, it's a $5,000. The formula that is on our website and that I can send to you has all of these formulas. So any taxable or any taxes associated with your gross monthly income will automatically be calculated. And then you'll find your net income, which is your income after taxes. So in this sample we're seeing here, we have $5,000 before taxes, and then income after taxes is $4,125. So the first thing that you want to do is list all of your total fixed costs. So that would be housing, student loan, vehicle payment, insurances that you might have, which would be your auto insurance, homeowners or renters insurance, health insurance, life insurance. So these are all of your total fixed costs. The next section on your budgeting sheet are variable costs. So these are monthly costs that you always have, but they might fluctuate depending upon usage. So that would be anything that you use to heat your home, electricity, water, cable and internet. And usually cable and internet is a fixed cost, but a lot of times people use on demand now, and they might rent a movie. So there could be a variable cost in there. Cell phone, the same thing, like depending on if you have a plan that, make sure that you have unlimited data or something like that. Food is definitely a variable cost, clothing, tolls, gas for your automobile, and your credit card. And I actually have 3 slots on this budget sheet for credit card debt. And the reason why I put it under total variable costs is because normally you have some flexibility in terms of how much you pay towards your credit card each month. You have to make your minimum payment, but sometimes again, if you have a little bit of extra, you could always put it towards your credit card. So that's why I consider that a variable cost. And then there's some discretionary costs. Those would be entertainment, wellness, pets, and charitable giving. So based on the total fixed costs, the total variable costs, and the total discretionary costs, my total expenses are $4,125. My net monthly income, so this is income after taxes, is $4,125. So the balance that I have at the end of my budget sheet, at the end of when I do my budget, is 0. All right. If I have extra money, then I might put it into savings, or I might put it into credit card and my credit card debt to try and pay that off. And that's what we're going to do in this particular scenario. Okay. All right. So step number 4. So that was our budget. And you do have to have a budget, honestly, guys, if you are going to try and tackle your debt. So that was step number 3. Step number 4, execute your plan. Executing a plan is a pivotal step in any process because this is where you have to take action. Sometimes people resist this step because they don't want to misstep or make a mistake. But how will you know if you don't do something? If you're concerned or hesitant, it's good to gain confidence by talking to someone you trust. So who would your trust person be? This is someone who you can discuss your situation with and who will encourage you and keep anything you tell them private. It's someone you can bounce ideas off from. The execution of your plan may mean drastic measures are taken, like not carrying your debit or your credit cards in order to minimize spending. And in this instance, you'll have to determine how much cash you'll carry. And this is based upon your budget, of course. It also may mean that you might have to cut up your credit cards, which is not a bad idea if you have a hard time with discipline and using your card maybe spontaneously. So what is your target date to be debt-free? That's one of the things that we definitely always want to keep in mind. And we're going to talk about now about what kind of cool debt reduction tool will work for you. Okay, so step number 5, this is the last step before we actually start talking about those tools and techniques. Step number 5 is monitor results and repeat to complete. So what you want to do is once you have, you're looking at these plans, and I'm going to share them with you in a minute. I want you to print out your plan, and you can put it on a poster. You can, make it all pretty, color it. Or if it's in your computer and you want to, just print it out, just make sure that it's in a prominent place so that you can look at it daily. And I know that sounds a little bit far-fetched, but I will tell you that it's necessary because what you focus on is what becomes important to you. And that's where you spend your energy. So I know that when I was going through, so I was in debt, and actually, okay, in full disclosure, I've been in debt a couple of times, but I have made my way out of it. When I was in college, I had student loan debt. I had some credit card debt. So before I got married, and I didn't get married until I was 30. So there was some time here, but I made this big poster and I put it on my fridge. People could come over to my apartment and they would see it. And I don't know, maybe it might have scared a couple of, boyfriends away. I don't know. But I wanted to see where I was all the time in my debt reduction program. So that's what was important to me. I will say that I have a friend who he has an Excel spreadsheet, and he has printed out that spreadsheet, and he basically keeps it in his bathroom next to his mirror. So he looks at that every morning when he's getting ready. Monitor your results daily. Okay, so now we're into the our next section, and this is about our cool tools. So the first one that I want to talk to you about, and it's very well known, and this is the debt snowball. A lot of people talk about debt snowball, so let me share, basically what the points are. So with the debt snowball, you want to list all of your debts from smallest to largest amounts. Pay all that you can toward the smallest debt first, while you're making minimum payments on all your other debts. Once your smallest debt is paid, take the payment that you've been making towards that small debt and apply it to the next smallest debt. And again, if you have a poster that you're monitoring, or if you have this on your computer, print it out so that you can see it and you can view it frequently. All right. So I'm going to go over an example of my debt snowball spreadsheet. And I'm going to go back to the 4 cards that I had mentioned, the Citi card, Triangle, Bank of America, and PayPal. All right. So based upon my example that I'm showing you here, I would like to be out of debt within a year. So I have a 12-month plan starting March 2021 with a target date of March 2022. So based upon the debt snowball, I'm going to start with my smallest debt, which is my PayPal credit card. That's a $400 balance. And then I've got Triangle after that. That's $593. Citi Card is $1,200. Bank of America is $3,800. So I've just done my budget and I have about $200 in surplus that I can put towards credit card debt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make all of the monthly minimum payments on my Triangle, Citi Card, and Bank of America. Those are going to be like Triangle's $50, Citi Card is $100, and Bank of America is $120. PayPal, now normally PayPal would only be $15, but I'm going to take, because that's my smallest debt at this point, I'm going to take that $200 surplus and apply it to PayPal. And lo and behold, within 2 months, I have PayPal is all finished. Like it's done. So I'm going to now for May, which is my third month on my target sheet here. Now I'm going to take that $200 that I was paying towards PayPal and I'm going to apply it to Triangle's debt. So I've already been paying $50, which is the minimum monthly due for on my Triangle Visa card. Now I'm paying $250. And I only have $493 left on this debt. So within 2 months, now my Triangle card is paid off. That brings me to July. In July, I'm going to take the so I had $200 that I was paying on PayPal. I had $50 that I was paying on Triangle and $100 on Citi Card. So now I'm paying $350 towards my Citi Card debt as of July. And I only have $793 left on that debt. So within 2.5 months, Citi Card is all paid off. And that leaves me Bank of America. So now October 2021, I have $2,703 left on my Bank of America. And I'm going to put everything that I was paying towards PayPal, everything that I was paying towards Triangle, everything that I was paying towards Citi Card is now all being dedicated to the remaining debt, which is Bank of America. And lo and behold, I'm out of debt within about 5 months. And I do hit my target date on this example. So that's the debt snowball. And you can see it, like I'm looking at it right now, and I can see that it looks like a snowball rolling down a hill. I mean, everybody always uses that analogy, and it really does look just like that. Okay, the next slide that I show is I do this just for my own personal, I don't know what to call it, preference, but I actually block out the month. I literally would, when I had that poster on my refrigerator, guys, I would literally take that whole entire monthly column and just like color it in. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted a snapshot of my current month moving forward so that I knew, like, as of May, this is what my debt was. And then when you do something like that, it's just a snapshot and it's purely out of preference and just my own preference. So, all right, let's go on to the next technique that we're going to talk about, or tool, is the debt avalanche. So we already talked about the debt snowball. So now let's talk about debt avalanche. And here are the principles. So you list all of your debts from the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate. You're going to pay all that you can toward the highest interest rate debt first, while making minimum payments on your other debts. Once your highest interest rate debt is paid, take that payment that you've been applying and you apply it to the next highest interest rate debt. And again, you want to post your debt avalanche poster or printout somewhere so that you can see it frequently. All right, so in this particular example, PayPal is my highest. So it's kind of coincidental that in debt snowball, PayPal is what I focused on first. In the debt avalanche, PayPal is also the first debt that I focused in on. And the reason why the debt avalanche is that PayPal has a 19% interest rate. So I want to tackle that with my $200 surplus first. Similar to the debt snowball example that I gave you, within 2 months, I've already paid off my PayPal. My second debt is Citi card that had a $1,200 balance and it was 12% interest. So I'm going to just hammer away at my Citi card debt. So I'm going to take the $200 that I was paying towards PayPal, and now I'm throwing it at Citi card. Then after, it looks like based on my example here, I pay that off in August of 2021. So after I do that, now it's Bank of America. So I'm going to take the money that I was paying towards PayPal, the money that I was paying towards Citi card, the money that I'm paying towards Bank of America, I'm rolling that all together. And I start on September 2021, I start hammering away at my Bank of America. That's $420 that I'm applying to the Bank of America, because Bank of America is 11% interest. That debt is actually, it ends up being my like, in terms of my meeting my target date, I still meet my target date of 1 year, but that debt is so large that it actually took me all the way to the following March of 2022 to pay it off. In this particular example, I ended up paying the Triangle one. I listed that last because Triangle's interest rate was only 8%. But while I was just making my monthly payments of $50, I paid off that debt. Let me just see here. I paid that off in October of 2021. As soon as I paid that off, though, I was able to take the $50 that I had been applying to Triangle, and then I started hammering, I added that to my other amount for the Bank of America. So by the time I ended up paying off the Triangle credit card, this would have been like around October of 2021. For that following month, November 2021, I had $470 that I could just throw at my Bank of America debt. So it's very similar to the debt snowball in terms of you're paying off one debt and you're applying it to the next one. But the debt avalanche is based on interest rates rather than balances. All right. So now I just want to wrap up about the cool tools section to let you know that if you are a Triangle member, you can sign up for online banking if you haven't already. And within online banking, there is a really cool tool called Money Manager. Actually, I think it's Money Management. I'm sorry, Money Management. And this tool is very robust. It tracks your wealth building, and it also has a debt tracker that works the debt snowball method, so you can view charts. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that if you like apps on your phone, there are debt tracker apps, and there's several of them out there, but just be careful. When I was looking into these, one app wanted to charge me, and another one had pop-up ads for debt consolidation loans, which is kind of a debt consolidation loan is a service where you consolidate all your debt for a fee. So I thought that wasn't really cool. I thought it kind of, actually, it was a little bit ironic that those things were popping up and being offered. But anyway, okay, so those are our cool tools. So the debt snowball, and then the debt avalanche, and then also Money Manager through online banking. So all of those are available to you. So now we're just gonna into our final thoughts here. So you've got yourself into this debt, and I hope now that you're feeling like you will be able to get out. You have to follow a plan, right? So you have to decide which tool you want to use and follow that 5-point path that we talked about. I really would encourage you to stop borrowing money and stop buying stuff. Find a hobby, maybe even make it a moneymaker if you're really good at it. I also will tell you that one thing that it really helped me in this process, I read a lot. I really, really dove in deep into a lot of personal finance books that encouraged debt-free living. So I would encourage you guys to do that as well. And then, even if it's just for a season, you might want to try and generate a little extra income, maybe find a side hustle. And again, this isn't long-term, but I know somebody who she really just wanted to pay off her auto loan. So she got a part-time job at one of the local DIY home improvement stores. And she just worked there for like 2 years, and it was just like on the weekends, but she was able to pay off her auto loan within like, I think of that 2-year period. And then the other thing that I would mention is, if you have any stuff laying around your house, um, there are some cool apps now, even like OfferUp and Craigslist, things like that. Just, try and sell some stuff and just apply everything to your debt. All right. So here are some resources that hopefully will help you through this process. I will tell you that probably the number one is Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. When I was getting out of debt, I think I read Total Money Makeover at least every year. So it took me like 3 years, and I read it every year. I was like, I am going to commit myself to this. And it's an excellent resource. Your Best Year Ever by Michael Hyatt. That also has some personal finance, and it has some other stuff in there too. That was a pretty good book. Finished by John Acuff. The Heart to Start by David Kadavi. 30-Day Money Cleanse by Ashley Gersley, and then Retire Inspired by Chris Hogan. The thing about Retire Inspired by Chris Hogan, I read that one recently. And, when you're not in debt anymore, now you can actually start, investing your money, and you're on the other side of it, right? The one thing that I will say is there is still a message about debt, though, in this book, and because they don't want you to go back into it. You got yourself out of the mess, so don't go back into it. So I do recommend that book too as well. All right. And then I would be remiss if I didn't say this. We have a lot of other webinars. They're actually live webinars. Just check out our events page through trianglecu.org. I think it's under the members tab, and it says events, and then you can go through there and you'll find all the webinars. And normally we have 2 or 3 at least. Sometimes there's more. And then we also have an awesome podcast. It's Making Money Personal, and I happen to be a co-host on that program. We actually talk a lot about personal finance. That's really the majority of our discussions, but we do have some other stuff too. We have monthly episodes that are a little bit longer, and then we have weekly, we call them snack size episodes. They're called Money Tip Tuesdays. So they come out on Tuesday, and you can actually download and subscribe to our channel. We would love that. So you can download and subscribe at any of the podcast or apps that you use. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. I hope that you found this, whether you're listening on as a podcast or listening or watching it on our YouTube channel. I hope you found it helpful. And I just encourage you to use these tools that we talked about today to stay focused, find your path, and stay on it. And you'll be living a financial-free, debt-free life shortly. And there's always hope for that. Okay? Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.